G'day folks and welcome to an Oz Cyclone Chasers National Cyclone Update today, the 1st of February 2015. My name's Chris Nitzo. This update is sponsored by Campbell Scientific Australia, when measurements matter. For those that follow us on Facebook right now, what we're doing over the next 24 hours is we'll be talking a little bit about Tropical Cyclone Yassi and what our recollections are. And right now our latest post is about what were you doing the night before Yassi, and there's a little timeline of events here of what we were doing at Oz Cyclone Chasers, and we'll have another one in the morning, and then we'll have another one tomorrow night, and then we'll have another one the morning after, just to show you what we were doing and see how that compares to what you might have been doing. So head over to our Facebook and add your comments to the list of comments that are already there. We'd love to know what you were feeling, what you were doing as before the cyclone came, as the cyclone was hitting, and then after the cyclone had passed. 4 years ago today it was. Sorry, 4 years ago tomorrow. Alright, let's take a look at what's happening right now. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking there are no current cyclones. There is in fact a tropical cyclone that we are watching. And for those of you that know and have been following us now for the last couple of weeks, you'll know that we've been talking about it for a while now. So the reason, firstly, let me just put this out there. The reason that there is no current cyclones on the Bureau of Meteorology page is because there are none in the area of responsibility of Australia. So let me just clarify that. Unless the cyclone develops or it pushes west of this 160 east line, which right now it isn't. Right now the cyclone is located just to the east of that line, so it's located around here. So until it crosses that line, of course, the Bureau are going to say there are no current cyclones about. So for those of you that have been giving them a little bit of flack, I do urge you to understand what the Bureau is in charge of, okay? And they are not in charge of this particular system, and therefore, technically, the Bureau are correct. There are no current cyclones. So please, I do urge you to lay off the bomb bashing. Alrighty, now on to the actual cyclone itself. This cyclone is called Tropical Cyclone Ola. It is now a severe Category 3 tropical cyclone. You can see quite well structured on the visible imagery. Once the infrared came through, though, it seems to have lost a little bit, but it's very difficult to pick structure out too well on infrared imagery, especially when we don't have a clear eye. Looking at the color imagery, what we use this color imagery for is to bring out the depth of the cyclone. We can see here the actual convective cloud depth, very, very strong. So we've got very strong convection. We've got good outflow to the south, good outflow to the north. Funk top imagery is another image that we use to look at where the strongest rainfall is occurring, and we can see right here around the core, right where the deepest thunderstorms actually are, tends to be your heaviest rainfall. So anything in the white and the green, extreme rainfall potential. Anything in the red could be moderate to heavy, and oftentimes we see that these little feeder bands out here have quite intense rainfall associated with them. Onto the track forecast. This is the latest from the Fijian Met Bureau. You can see Category 3 system eventually starting to ease tomorrow, back to a Category 2, Category 1, and then a tropical low. Now, it may push a little bit to the west. In fact, it's actually likely to push a little bit to the west, and you're likely to go through this period where people start panicking, going, oh, it's coming towards us. But look, don't stress about that. If it does start to move too far to the west towards Queensland, it will die. And here's the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre's latest track from this evening. We can see the system is expected to push a little bit to the west, is expected to come a little bit closer to Queensland. However, also if you note here the actual intensity of the system, you're looking down at about a 30-knot system once it gets to the final run here. So as it approaches the coastline, all that will be left of it will be a low-level circulation centre. The actual system itself will have died. The good news with a low-level circulation centre, should it push west, now I'm not going to say it will push west, but should it push west, is that it might actually enhance some shower activity here. It will what it will certainly do is give you surfers in the Gold Coast, northeast New South Wales region, some really good surf conditions as we get into the middle part of next week. Sorry, the middle part of this week. Now, there is an alternative scenario to all this, and the alternative scenario has the system tracking way out here to the southeast, and the alternative scenario is quite feasible, especially if the system remains quite deep. So we've got really deep convection right now, and if that deep convection remains around the system, it might track a little bit to the west before an upper level trough will take it and will drag it away here to the southeast into the graveyard. And we hate the graveyard at Oz Cyclone Chasers because we see so many of these systems end up dead in the water out here. On the Canadian CMC model, we actually see a lot of variation to the track forecast. You've got variability showing that southeast motion of a system here around the stronger end of 980s to 990s, and then we have a westerly option of 990 to 1000 hectopascals pushing through here. That would make it a fairly strong low pressure system or weak tropical cyclone. So look, there is certainly a chance of the system pushing west, hitting the coast, but in terms of actual cyclone intensity system hitting the coastline, there is a very, very small chance of that happening. A very small chance of that happening. And if you need me to say it again, I'll say it again. A very small chance of that happening. Now, I did mention that on the satellite it was very hard to see the eye. Well, once we pierce the satellite with microwave imagery, the eye comes out beautifully here as a tightly compact little system. So even though the system, or probably because the system is so small, we have a very nice tight little eye here, which means the system's a very nice looking Category 3 system that does pack a fair bit of punch right near the eye, in the eye wall. Now what we're showing you here is the deep layer mean steering flow, and what we see on the deep layer mean steering flow is should the system continue to be a strong tropical cyclone, it will track here to the south-southeast. There is very little doubt in the computer model guidance about that. Now, of course, the issue becomes should the system weaken considerably, then a track more to the southwest and then the west and possibly even the northwest could result in whatever's left of the system. So the reasoning being that if the system is weak, it is likely to be governed by a different level of steering than if the system is strong. So if the system is strong, the steering flow is set in stone. We know it's set in stone and it won't change. But as the system weakens, it'll start to come under the influence of different steering flow level, and therefore we have that track back towards the west possible. But remember, if it tracks back towards the west, it is weak. Another thing we're looking at here, and it's becoming more and more obvious, is this really dry air. Now this blue shows us very dry air that's creeping into the western Coral Sea, the southwestern Coral Sea, and so we've got a situation here that should the cyclone now start to track in a more southerly and then southwesterly and then westerly direction, it's going to be tracking straight into this dry air. Now the only thing cyclones hate more than dry air is vertical wind shear, but when you combine this dry air with wind shear values of 30, 40, 50 knots, you have a recipe for a very, very quick death of a tropical cyclone. So let's take a look at a computer model overview. We can see here the UKMet model. We're looking at a southward moving system. The system then weakens out, and what's left of the low-level circulation centre tracks here to the northwest off the coast of Queensland and starts heading up the Coral Sea. Now look, should this happen, we're looking at a system with a maximum wind of 30 knots. The wind will only be on the southwestern and southern quadrants, or sorry, southwestern to southeastern quadrants. There will be no wind to its north. It will be more like a trough system rather than a full-on tropical low. But look, 30 knots is still 30 knots, and it's still a fresh to strong wind, and it is still going to probably, given this track, if it takes this track, possibly increase the shower activity as it heads closer to the Queensland coast. But in terms of cyclone potential, we're really very limited. The European, probably a model best not looked at the moment. It's confusing itself. It has completely underestimated the intensity of the tropical cyclone. It's expected to track it south-southwest and then sort of just drag it back up here to the north. 27 knot system. Big high underneath it. All that's left of it is the low-level circulation centre. There's no cloud depth associated with it. So you can see the actual colour shading here shows us the amount of rainfall expected from it. And you can see there's no rainfall. There's a very limited rainfall here on the system, and a 27 knot system, similar to the UKMet, below cyclone intensity, and not much guts to it. It's only got the low-level circulation centre and a few showers attached to it. The NavGem model, straight out here, south-southeast, it does push a little bit further to the southwest there for a little while, and then pushes out here to the southeast into the graveyard and away and dead. The GFS forecast model, not remotely interested in a track back to the west. Now, the reason the GFS model is not interested in a track back towards the west is the fact that the GFS model keeps this a fairly strong tropical cyclone for an extended period of time. Remember the equation here. If the system is strong, it will track away to the southeast. If the system weakens, it will start to track back towards the west. So there it is there. That's the equation. Strong system away to the southeast, weak system over to the west, but really, we're not really concerned about it anyway if it does track westwards because it's going to be a weak system. On the FIM model, we have a similar sort of thing here, south, south-southwest, then a bit of a loop-to-loop, loses all signs of real development, and we have then a weak system just meandering about in the southern Coral Sea. If we take a look at a spaghetti model plot here of just the European model, now remember what I mentioned about the European, it really has struggled a bit with this system because it has not identified the intensity of the tropical cyclone. It has completely downplayed the intensity of the system, and so the track back towards the west here might be slightly exaggerated because of the fact that its initialization of the system is quite off. And so what you see here is that the majority of model members push it out here to the southwest and then eventually just weaken it below cyclone intensity somewhere here in the southern Coral Sea. We do have 1, 2, 3 model members that make it a bit of a nuisance for the coast, but that's 3 out of 50, and you can see there's a lot more that push it out here to the southeast, and then most of them just die it out here in the southern Coral Sea. As I mentioned, the big news here is surf conditions. Great surf conditions expected from it. Hopefully, if it doesn't die too quickly, you're going to see a lot of surf, which is fantastic. I know a lot of you have been hanging out for that. The next 4 days of rain for Australia. We're looking at a trough system across central Queensland creating showers and storms in this area. We're also looking at the northern parts of the peninsula, looking at an enhanced period of shower activity over the next 4 days. Also showers and storms across the top end in a monsoon break situation, and the trough system through here is creating some excellent thunderstorms around Geraldton, which is quite unseasonal this time of year, but there's spectacular storms, amazing stuff. But we're going to see a continuation of some showers and storms across that western region on that trough line. On the next 4-day period, we're going to see an increase in rainfall across the North Tropical Coast. Now, this is with or without that whatever's left of that low-level circulation centre pushing this way. The fact is that we've got a nice big ridge, juicy ridge, pushing these southeasterly winds, strong winds up the coast of Queensland, creating a lot of rainfall here for the North Tropical Coast and Tablelands district. Obviously, the area around Townsville tends to miss out on that for the Herbert and Lower Burdekin, and also the other area that might get a fair bit of that is the Mackay coastline. Also, the southeast Queensland coastline, expecting a few of the models that do push this system westwards enhance the rainfall around there. Not to a point where we're talking about flooding, but we are talking about a situation with some moderate to heavy periods of showers if the system does track towards the west. Remember, once again, the big thing, if it tracks west, it's going to be weak. If it tracks southeast, it's probably going to be stronger. And if it tracks northwest, then it's likely to just be a surface wind issue rather than any sort of real system to note. Well, the other thing that's quite concerning and interesting at the same time is the fact that we're going to see a lot less activity over the Northern Territory, and also that trough system across WA pushes a little bit further to the west, which means that areas like Karratha, Onslow, Port Hedland could be in with more of a chance of picking up some showers and storms, rogue showers and storms at the time. There's no sign of a monsoon until probably the middle to latter parts of February at this stage. Thanks for watching our update, folks, and just remember, if you are on Facey, get on there and join us about what you were doing when Yassi hit. Our next video update will now be on Tuesday night at about 9 PM, give or take about 15 minutes. Now, if if Cyclone Ola does something that we're not expecting, so for some unknown weird reason it decides to push west and maintain intensity, then we will update you earlier than that. But at this stage, folks, no new changes are expected for that system, so we'll update you Tuesday night. We'll keep having some text updates on Facey, and also for subscribers, we'll continue to update you on your subscriber website in the meantime. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk again Tuesday night.